have interesting comments made by Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony, who is he's a content creator at this point. He's retired from the NBA. He has his podcast with uh one of those guys. I think it's one half of Jesus and Mero, I think, or somebody like this. But Carmelo has his podcast where he brings his people on and they talk sports and other things. And Carmelo's an internet talking head at this point. And he went somewhat viral on the internet for his comments that he made in support of pro athletes who, they embrace some of these new school forms of expression, like the fingernail painting. He's friends with Dwayne Wade, who also is a fan of the fingernail painting and all of that good stuff. And Carmelo obviously does not see anything wrong with the fingernail painting. He thinks people need to get off these guys' backs. And he believes that if they hooping and doing a thing, who cares? It ain't stopping them from being productive players. So why, stop shaming them for the fingernail painting? And he specifically points to Jared McCain. I believe he used to be a Dookie. I think he used to be at Duke, McCain.
Yeah, he was.
So he uses McCain as an example because McCain gets a lot of flack for his fingernail painting, as you can see there. And Carmelo's like, man, leave these guys alone. Let them hoop. It's a new thing. Leave the young people alone. So this says Carmelo Anthony on Jared McCain painting his nails. Let them boys be themselves. He's still hooping. Philadelphia 76ers rookie Jared McCain has attracted a lot of attention for sporting painted fingernails on the court. But former NBA star Carmelo Anthony doesn't think it's a big deal. In an interview with Mark Elibert for Complex, Melo was asked what he thinks about McCain and the noise he's made since debuting in the league. That's the generation now. Like, we got to fall back. Like, it ain't our time no more. This is a young man's sport. Like, this ain't our time. We keep laying down the iron fist when we only don't agree with something. Let them boys be themselves, man. Let them do what they do and have their fun like they do it differently than we did. Melo added that he thinks that people can't be mad at the new generation doing things differently. That's two totally different generations. If you got to keep painting them fingernails, man, he's still hooping. He was also pressed for more thoughts on what pushes the new generation to be themselves, using LaMelo Ball as another example. I feel like they don't care. That's what it is. It's a difference. They don't care. They are fearless. You know what I mean? And they don't care what nobody says. We still were standing on something, and we still had a foundation. Like, they are taking our foundation and just recreating what they want to recreate. But that's society today, right? It's all DIY today. They do it for themselves in their own way and feel good about doing it. In an interview with Complex last year while he was playing for Duke University, McCain dismissed the criticism for painting his nails. I like to get manicures and pedicures. I take care of my body. Some of these people hate. I don't know if they do take care of their bodies. So I just like getting the color, and it's always been myself. The hate is funny because it's usually grown men most of the time. And it's like, you're a grown man just hating on a kid. It doesn't affect me at all. I just kind of laugh at it. So, Mr. Dogon, do you agree with Carmelo's take about the young boys painting their fingernails and his idea that we should just let the young boys do what they do because they're taking it and running with it and they don't care what people think?
I agree in the sense that, let them do what they do because, well, hell, they're gonna do it any damn way. So, me having my thoughts on it, I'm just an old man hating on a young man, apparently. So, why not just let them do what they do? And I have my objections for this kid because, I saw him. What was that last year? With this stuff while he was at Duke. I knew he was highly recruited coming out of high school. I knew he was going to be one of those one and doners. And I was like, but this guy, look at him. You'll see him do his little TikTok dance. It's as sassy as you want it to be. And I was like, there's no way this guy can hoop. And so I figured that he was just a product of playing at Duke. I was like, who cares, man? We'll see what happens when he go to the league. And not gonna lie, bro is hooping. For a while he was shooting 40% from three. Now it's gonna drop down to 38, but that's still very impressive for a kid that's shooting high volume in the NBA right now. So this guy will be around. If you're doing that in your rookie year, this guy's going to be here until he doesn't want to be in the league anymore. So get comfortable with it, fellas, because you're going to see a lot more from this guy, and it's not just going to be painted nails. So and that's the part about all of this stuff where it's like, well, what am I going to do? So that's why I kind of agree with Carmelo in the sense that just let him do it because he's going to do it anyway. But in the sense that, do I care for this? No, I don't. I've related this before in the past to pants sagging. This is just the addition to that, because I don't know if these guys still sag their pants, but pants sagging is still a thing. And so, this is a form of them feeling like they're being individuals amongst others. So, it's in the same boat of, because as a former pants sagger, my whole thing was like, hey man, stop hating, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing my thing. And the ladies don't have a problem with it. So get out my face with it. And so, these guys here, they love painting their nails. The men love it, so they don't have a problem with it. So you know what I'm saying? When you started off the thing, you say, hey man, so Carmelo say, hey man, get off their back. I don't know, man. I think these guys like men on their back. So it's not a big deal for these dudes, man. They take it in stride. All right. So all in all, man, y'all can have at it, bro. The conditioning that got these young men to this point, it was going on for a very long time. So my objection to their level of conditioning, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose in the sense that it's a drop in the bucket compared to all the forward momentum of that indoctrination they've been receiving since they were young people. So I'm not going to try to stand in the way of this. The only thing I would say is for younger people that are still in the impressionable phase where the conditioning is bombarding them, but there's some alternative ways of thinking that are, I don't want to say, I would just say alternative ways of thinking in the sense that you don't have to go with whatever the Joneses are doing. Because right now, this McCain kid, as much as he thinks he's being an individual, you're doing exactly what the masses, the program wants you to do. So you're not being a rebel. You're right in line with the agendas. So, so for any young person out there that thinks that I'm just an old man hating, I'm unk out here hating on a young guy, I would say I beg to differ. So hey man, he can hoop. And why wouldn't they be able to hoop too? I mean, everybody's got access to a basketball. So at some point we were going to get this stuff happening. So what are your thoughts on Carmelo Anthony, man, saying, hey guys, ease up on these young dudes, man. This is how they express themselves, and so long as they balling, what's the issue? What are your thoughts, man?
I can promise you that even if he wasn't a good player, I'd still have the same opinion about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd probably still express how I feel about this, whether he was a good player or not.
Mm-hmm.
So whether they're good and productive or not is irrelevant to how I feel about these types of behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring up a very valid point that I don't understand why other people don't see this. If you're doing something because it's trendy, you're not being an individual. You're being a conformist.
Exactly.
Like that's the irony inherent in all of this stuff. Like if you're doing something because it's trending on TikTok and the internet, and guys doing this, cloaked underneath the umbrella of expression and being an individual is a trend on the internet. And if you are following suit, you're conforming to that. Therefore, you're not being a rebel. You're not being an individual. You're not really expressing yourself in a way that goes against the grain. You're
Correct.
falling in line with internet culture,
Correct.
which makes you a conformist, which makes you the opposite of what Carmelo is describing. Which is which is the irony inherent in that whole angle to me, the idea that they're doing it to express themselves or be somehow individualistic. No, you're not. You're being a conformist. You're being a conformist. Totally, you're being a tried and true conformist.
Mm-hmm.
And to Carmelo, see, here's my thing with Carmelo. You know, Carmelo's an industry guy.
Unfortunately.
Carmelo is an industry guy. He's friends with Dwayne Wade. It is beneficial for Carmelo Anthony's bottom line,
of course,
to publicly be in support of these things.
Absolutely.
So he literally can't afford. Now, maybe he does truly feel that way. Maybe he does. I'm not going to speculate. Maybe he really does support this stuff. But my point is, if he didn't, he'd still say the same thing, because it is counterintuitive to his bottom line to be anti. When you're an industry person, whether it's in sports or entertainment, you've got to do this or be willing to sacrifice some ends and some popularity. I think we have seen thus far in Carmelo's post-playing career, he seems unwilling to sacrifice any of those ends or popularity. He wants to gobble up as much of that as he can. And in gobbling up as much of that as he can, it does not pay to say you don't agree with Jared McCain painting his fingernails. So from that standpoint, I have to take what he says with a grain of salt, because I don't know how he really feels about it.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that for a lot of these individuals in his position, it pays to say you're cool with it. I do know that. And I also know that it doesn't pay to say you don't like it. And people want to get paid. Those are all objective truths. So you can take with that what you want. But when it comes to the behavior itself, outside of the idea behind it being outside of the idea that it is somehow individualistic being a fallacy, which is what I believe. I believe that is a fallacy, because you're being a conformist, which means that by default you're not individualistically doing anything. I also holler some form of collusion, because I just don't understand, why does expression and individualism and going against the grain and rebelling against any sort of status quo, why does that have to equate to men doing women things? Like, that's the only question that I have. Why do those things have to equate to one another? Like, if you look over there in the WNBA, unless we're talking about the players who are masculine and are same sex in terms of their orientation, the WNBA players are still wearing dresses and they're still painting their fingernails. When they do public appearances, they dress like women.
For the most part.
Well, that's what I'm saying, except for the Brittany Griners amongst them, right? So, like, unless we're talking about like the Brittany Griners, the Candace Parkers, unless we're talking about them, they're still showing up at the ESPYs wearing dresses or wearing their skirts or wearing something that was designed to be worn by a woman. They still paint their fingernails. They still get their hair done. I don't see a whole lot of WNBA players getting bald fades and temp fades. I don't see it. I don't see a lot of WNBA players getting tailor fitted for 3-piece suits or a sport jacket and a coat. It happens, but they are the minority, not the majority. But on the flip side, what we're seeing is the underlying suggestion that in order to break away from the mold and really express yourself in a way that's truly meaningful as a guy, you're going to be doing things such as fingernail painting. Now, it might sound like I'm casting aspersions on the act itself. And while I will openly admit that I don't agree with doing it, I wouldn't do it. I don't agree with it. What I balk at is the notion that doing that is somehow synonymous with expressionism and individualism and being your own unique self. Why are those two things being correlated? And that's when I suggest that something fishy is taking place, because I don't see the opposite end of that spectrum taking place. I don't see it. I don't see a whole host of female professional athletes engaging in this kind of behavior at the same rate. Not at the same rate. So that's the only question that I would ask. Where do these ideas come from? You know, if you want to use the word agenda, collusion, whatever tinfoil hat adjective you want to use to describe why this is taking place, in my opinion, it is becoming increasingly evident that there seems to be a an equitability taking place. There seems to be an equivocation occurring in which the suggestion is, as a man, if you want to really get out there and show who you really are and who you really want to be, and show the world the real you, the prideful you, the boastful you, the you where you love who you are, it involves doing that. And that's why I would simply ask the question, why?
Yeah, I mean, I have my assumptions, but I would say that for the social engineering that has been going on, um, for decades now, it has been predicated towards removing the man from man, and the rebellion that is inherent, I would say, in all men. Um, Rebellion in the sense of, I think that there's a thing within men naturally that their duty is to balance things out. Um, and we are the aggressors in balancing things out. Now, if there is a way that a society is being run, and you want to make sure that the inherent thing that are in all men is under control, is, well, instead of them, it's like they gotta work out. It's just they gotta work out. They gotta get this thing out. This is it's a physical energy and attention that's in men to work this muscle out. And so while doing that, the act of rebelling against what it is to even be a man is now being rebellious. So now this McCain kid, who has an innate desire to rebel against things, has been conditioned to think that being a man is the wrong thing. So he, instead of taking arms or taking his intellect towards rebelling against a system that is putting him in a precarious position, he is now using that energy towards getting at me because I'm a regular man. And now he's doing all of this stuff, and he's got more things to do. So his sassy dances, his peculiar behavior, and all this other stuff that he's got going on with his lifestyle, or anybody else like him, that is the fight against masculinity versus the fight against the people or the interests that are looking to keep us in this perpetual cycle, I would say. And so when I said agenda, I mean, hell, it's the agenda of the social engineering that's going on. Because if I walked into an establishment, trying to get hired somewhere or whatever, and I had painted nails, they're not going to say that, oh, we're not going to hire this guy, he's not professional enough. They're going to be like, hey, well, no, his hair isn't painted blue, but hell, he's one step away from it, and they're gonna hire me on the spot. Because and there's a motion going towards this 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 way of thinking that is rebelling against nature. And so no, there isn't WNBA players so much so, I would say, you know what I'm saying, that are just in droves doing what these young men are doing.
Or
But
not even WNBA players, just you can extrapolate it to female athletes, period, not just basketball players.
but I would argue that the mentality of women is being their rebellion instead of rebelling is rebelling against what it is to be a woman. And so now they got this whole, now even if she's got a dress on and makeup and nails painted, she still is being trained to think like a man and abandon her innate things that she's got going on. And so now there's this whole dichotomy going on in Northern America, westernized societies, where gender roles are all out of whack. Women are trying to be the independent whatevers, and men are trying to be the new sassy queens. And so part of this whole thing, I would say, is that no, it's going down on both sides of the spectrum. It's just that men, you know, they are articulating themselves like this. But women, they're articulating themselves as no, they still want their hair and nails done. But at the same time, they got this whole independent syndrome thing going on. So I think that there's an attack on all fronts, but especially with these men going on right now in pro sports. Last thing I'll say is that, I mean, there's been sassy dudes for a long time. All right. There's been guys that have been lived alternative lifestyles in both the NFL and NBA. You know what I'm saying? But it was over here and over there. And I'm pretty sure there was some weird locker room action happening for some guys that we thought that was straight up and down. But for the most part, I still would say that there was there was still manning going on at a very large clip. Now, man, these kids now, bro, all of them got the sassy bug, bro. I mean, if they were born, 2005 after, man, these young dudes, man, they're coming into the league with these strange behaviors. So I'm not surprised that he's doing this. He's a product of his times of conditioning, not his product of his time of self-expression and wanting to evolve life into a more better situation for the future generations. All this is telling him and future generations to do is to not be who you really are. So feel sorry for the kid, honestly. He's just a byproduct of conditioning. And I agree with your take on Carmelo in the sense that, yeah, man, he's an industryite, and he's gonna straddle that fence where whatever, man. Because what he look like hating on this kid, and then trying to go around circles of the people, and I'm basketball savant, man. So if Baby Mello walk around like that, then I'd be like, okay, he down for this. But I don't think he want Baby Mello to walk around like that. So don't be telling other people to be having their kids walk around like that. But yeah, man, just it's a wild situation, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that for whatever reason we desire to live in a world devoid of order. I believe gender roles are a form of structure. Not the only form of structure, but I think gender roles are a form of structure. And in an effort to create a world devoid of order, you want to remove all of the 10 poles of structure, or at least as many of them as possible, gender being one of them. So much so that gender roles therefore become eradicated. And we are literally just humans doing whatever we want to do, devoid of any sort of intrinsic roles in nature and society. We like the world designs itself to be devoid of any sort of order or structure for whatever reason. I guess it's because the old way of doing things never worked, according to who you talk to. And so because it never worked, we need to just tear it all down and let people do whatever they want. I don't think that that is the best way for you to have a functioning society with people who contribute to it. I think that that is the fast track to hedonism, in my opinion. But this is taking on a far more aggressive form with men over women. See, women might be receiving a form of social conditioning which suggests abandon your innate function, but still present yourself in an innate way outwardly. But men are being told abandon your innate function and abandon your innate presentation. Like that's the difference. That's the difference. The difference is men are being implicitly told abandon your nature both innately and abandon your nature in terms of your presentation.
I agree.
Whereas women are being told simply abandon your nature innately because your presentation is just fine. And we all seem to be complicit with that because ladies still want to look like ladies and nobody's complaining about that. So there's an interesting juxtaposition that's taking place there. And I don't think it's exactly apples to apples. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, I would always challenge the equivocation of individuality with being effeminate as a man. I just don't know why that means that. It's somewhat similar to the question of why a man in comedy. I brought this up before. Why have we all basically allowed the idea to persist that funny in comedy equates to a guy being a female? You know, where a guy wearing a dress makes that somehow funny inherently in comedy. Why? It's a similar sort of question. It's a similar sort of question because, like I said, if you're talking about comedy and entertainment, you don't see nearly as many examples of women being masculine as the crux of the joke in comedy. Yes, it happens, but it does not happen at nearly the frequency that we see men being women as the crux of the joke. So it's the same sort of dynamic playing out. And why we have chosen to allow these equivocations to persist is the question that I have. But, moreover, I tend to agree with you that they're going to do it anyway, so I don't complain. I'm never complaining about the people who do this stuff.
Yeah,
I'm always challenging the ideology behind the defense of it. That's always where I come in at it from. But otherwise, people do whatever they want. It is what it is. I don't care. He ain't my son. So what do I care? Do whatever you want to do, bro. But at the end of the day, I will always challenge the ideology because I believe it is rooted in a fallacy. And for people such as Carmelo to champion this, it suggests I can't really go all the way with taking him at his word because due to the position that he's in, I don't really know how he feels about it.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Once you hit a certain level, bro, you not well, you are allowed to be real, but and see, that's the thing. See, you're allowed to be real to a certain extent, and then once you cross this level, like if you say something too real over here, in case in point with this situation, well, now you're cutting off streams of income.
Well, it depends on the individual because there are certain people who don't care about. There are certain people who say, "I'm fine here and I can live with this. I don't need to be way up here."
Right.
And so there are certain people who are like, "I'm fine here and I'm going to continue to say whatever I want because I've already accepted this is where I'm going to be."
Right.
But yeah, there's guys like Carmelo. Carmelo wants to be a mogul. Like as quietly as is kept, Carmelo fancies himself getting onto the LeBron level in terms of mogul wealth billionaire status. And when that's what you aspire to do, ruffling feathers, even though I don't think that's ruffling feathers, the world clearly believes that being honest in that regard is ruffling feathers. And it just doesn't pay for you to do that. You'll jeopardize your potential mogul status in the process.
Well, and that's my point. And so if you're keeping it real and you're what I'm saying, you doing your thing and this is where you at, you still got something going for yourself, but this is where you're at. But if you want to keep it real in this situation and you don't have access to this up here, well, what's this up here? Who are these people? And this is what I'm saying. So who are these people? What are these businesses? because the masses, for the most part, you know what I'm saying, for the most part, you know, they're being trained and conditioned by these people. That's why they're thinking like that now. And so you can't be up here with these people making this kind of money talking like this down here. So who are these people? Why can't you say something like this? And these are the people that are pushing this stuff to McCain. And that's why he didn't stand a chance being born in the era he was being born in, consuming the content he was being consuming from these people. And so Carmelo, if he wants to make this kind of money, then he gonna have to say what he just said. On the flip side, on that last topic that we was talking about, Walker said he don't need $100 million. He don't need to be all of that stuff. So long as I get to drive the car I want to drive. Melo can already drive the car he want to drive. He can already do everything he wants. He's trying to aspire to do something else.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but so long as you're content of where you're at, he's like, hey man, I can travel, I can do whatever the hell I want. I don't need to be all up in the videos and do all this extra stuff. And so I'm gonna just do this here, and that's just a-okay. But these industryites, they are adhering to a certain code. What is this code? And why do you have to adhere to that? And I'm telling you right now, the more we allow this up here, this code speak that these people are doing, the more future generations we're going to have that we're not pleased with. So at some point, somebody has to call something out. So I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I'll just let this go on for the next one. No. So yeah, Melo, nah, dog. You know what I'm saying? Stand on something. Because I know you don't really feel like that.
How do you know? You hope that he doesn't really. That's what I'm saying, bro.
If Baby Melo was walking around like that, then I'd be like, well, he on wait time.
I'm not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I believe that it is on the board that he really feels that way. I'm not like, I think he may be against it, but we'll never know because he won't never tell the truth if he is. But he also might be with it because of where he is in his life, and therefore he also would be with it if it was his own son.
Well, if he's with this in any capacity, whether he's capping or not, take a hike, Melo. You're done. You're done. After I just started explaining this and I visually saw it, take a hike, Melo.
It could be on the board, man. He's probably been to enough industry parties and events at this point that he's been indoctrinated enough to now he even believes what he says in that regard, if it's gotten to that point. Therefore, if his son decided to pull what Wade's son decided to do, he'd have to be all for it and be okay with it and love every second of it and become an advocate and an ally. He'd have to.
Melo he's been baby oil infused. I ain't with it, dog.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, whatever with the. I agree with you, future generation, but I've already resigned to the fact that I think future generations are screwed. I believe future generations are screwed. I already believe that. And furthermore, I'm always going to attack the ideology. I'm not going to attack the people who fall victim to it, because what can you do? I mean, I fell victim to hip hop and rap music when I was a kid.
Right.
You know, thankfully I was able to break out of it. But while I was a kid, I was fully indoctrinated into that stuff. It was my life code. Agreed. So I can't really blame them, but I'm also going to combat the defense of the ideology and the fallacy behind it, because it's not real. And these false equivocations have got to go. So
stay safe, y'all.
Yeah. No shout out to Melo on this one, man.
Nah, dog. You take a hike,
bro. I can't rock with you on that, bro. Not at all.
Unbelievable.